1-800-483-8300.
It's 4 p.m. Do you know where your kids are?
Open mic night's back, so if you can sing or play.
Come entertain us Tuesday nights at 7 p.m.
Constable came to a victim.
He had several automatic weapons, apparently.
Laying in the yard.
He shot the constable 5 times.
Yeah, wounded constable.
Then the guy pickpockets and takes all the police's gear.
There's a guy inside a house shooting a shotgun at a police officer. They stormed the house.
Finally, they shot the shooter. I don't think he's dead. He was still kind of twitching when they put him in the ambulance.
And is your mom held up inside right now?
Well, she's held up in her vehicle on Fidelity Street in front of two houses down.
Now, in high definition on KBTX, the region's news leader, this is First News at 4.
We appreciate you tuning in. We continue following the breaking news out of College Station, where a lunch hour shooting has left 3 people dead, including a local law enforcement officer. Now, it happened just after noon on Fidelity Street. Constable Brian Bachman was reportedly serving an eviction notice when a resident opened fire. Now, News 3's Steve Bullhart has been following the situation. He joins us live now from College Station with the latest and a little information on Constable Brian Bachman. Hi, Steve.
Hi there, Carla. We are awaiting a press conference here that should be getting underway in mere moments. In fact, they may actually be coming in right now to deliver that press conference. We're going to take that, of course, live. We'll get back to the other stuff in just a moment. But College Station PD, along with a lot of other law enforcement in the area, have been stepping up to make sure that we're well informed in the latest update coming right now. In just a moment, actually. Previous one was delivered by Assistant Chief Scott McCullough. Again, it'll be Scott McCullough here for College Station Police Department with the latest update. Again, we are live from the College Station ISD building. Here is the Assistant Chief.
With additional information as it becomes ready.
Does everyone have audio up here? I need a sound check or anything like that. I don't have audio. Speak up if you don't.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott McCollum, Assistant Chief with College Station Police Department. It's sad to report that we've had a tragic event today at College Station. Today, approximately 12:12, we had a constable that responded to a residence in the 200 block of Fidelity, and upon doing so, he was there serving papers, and upon doing so, received fire from the individual that lives at that address. We received a call of shots fired, and 2 officers were close by and responded very quickly. Upon their response, they began to take fire from the suspect. Additional officers began to respond and engaged in it. Eventually, 2 of our officers were able to engage him and shoot the suspect and neutralize the threat, essentially. We had several different officers responding from various locations throughout our region and assist in the situation. As you can imagine, it's very chaotic when something like this happens. We have a lot of information coming in, a lot of witnesses to try and secure, crime scenes to try to secure as well. We have over 4 different crime scenes that we're trying to secure and make sure that we are able to collect evidence. Through our investigations, we've determined that a male civilian was shot and killed. He is approximately 65 years of age, and we are still in the process of trying to identify him and notify his next of kin. We also received information that a 55-year-old female civilian was shot. She is currently in surgery at a local hospital. Through the response, we also had several officers that were injured. We had an officer that was shot in the calf. He is currently in treatment at a local hospital. And we had 2 other officers that were treated or are being treated for non-life-threatening injuries. As far as identification of these individuals, we are not currently releasing that information due to our efforts, our investigation, as well as our efforts to notify next of kin. In our previous news conference, we did identify that one of the individuals that were shot. The constable's name is Brian Bachman. Brian Bachman was very close to everyone in law enforcement. He was a pillar in this community, and it's sad and tragic that we've lost him today. And as you can imagine, as close as he was to all the officers in this area, these are the officers that are having to work this case and work through not only the motions, but all the details that are required to make sure that we have a good understanding as to why this occurred. What was the basis of it? We have to do background investigations and try and understand exactly why this individual elected to do this today. So we have quite a bit of information to still sort through. We still have a lot of questions to ask, and we just ask that the public be patient with us as we wade through this volume of information and try to make, as best as we can, try to make some sense out of the situation. I will accept a couple of questions. I know there has been some rumors that have been out there. We want to make sure that we do everything we can to address those rumors and not have misinformation out there. So if anybody has a question or a concern.
Is there 4 crime scenes? Where
we have multiple crime scenes.
Where are those located?
I can't tell you right now. It's part of the investigation, but we do have the whole area secured, and we are in the process of trying to keep everybody out so that we can process all those crime scenes and collect the information and the evidence we need.
Sir, was an eviction notice being served?
Excuse me?
Was an eviction notice being served, and can you tell us more about that?
That is correct. He was in the process of serving an eviction notice, but that is essentially the only information I have right now as far as the aspect, the reason behind that eviction notice. I do not know.
Can you say anything about the weapon that was used or weapons?
I cannot, not at this time.
Can you tell me how many shots were fired in the exchanges?
I cannot at this time.
Can you please say the homeowner? Was this a homeowner or a renter?
I do not know that at this time. We're in the process of collecting this information, and I guess I caution you guys that as we release this information, it is an ongoing investigation. And it's extremely important that we collect this information and we try and build the case that we can to try and understand all the ins and outs of this investigation. So there's going to be several instances where we cannot answer your questions because of the ongoing investigation, but we will do our best to try and give you understanding as to those involved. We're working hard to try and get next of kin notified so that we can give you those names so that you can have understanding of who those people are that are involved in this tragic event.
When you say there were 4 scenes, how close are they geographically? Are they within that general area?
They are. They are with the small geographical area that we have cordoned off right now. We are working multiple scenes. As the investigation continues, we may determine that we have additional scenes as well.
Do we know who shot the civilian student at the university?
We are in the process of collecting background information, but we can't confirm one way or another right now.
How old was him? How old is he? Was him?
How old? Mm-hmm. He was 35, I believe. He was in his mid-30s. Excuse me?
Did the suspect say anything or shout anything?
I can't.
Were there any relations to any of the victims?
I can't establish that right now.
Were all the injuries associated with gunfire, or were the injuries, you said there were non-life-threatening injuries to 2 officers. Was that gunfire or some other?
There were, as I mentioned to you, the confirmed gunfire injuries are those that I've spoke about. The other injuries were subsequent to the response to the situation, and we're trying to assess that information. As you can imagine, all these individuals, we did our best to get them to the hospital and get treatment as soon as possible. They're undergoing treatment while we're working this scene. So as you can imagine, there's a lot going on right now. We're doing our best to try and make sure that we cover all the bases and provide you information as we can.
When the constable first showed up, was he able to radio for backup, or did backup have to come from other 911 calls?
Like I said, we're in the process of evaluating every single step along the way. But we, as College Station Police Department, received a shots fired call, and when we received that call, we responded. We had officers very close.
Through 911 or through the constable call?
We received a shots fired call from a citizen, and so we responded very quickly, and upon our officers' response is when they began to take on fire from the suspect.
How long were the officers engaged in gunfire with the suspect?
I don't have the exact time period, timeline in front of me, but it was for an extended period of time. I can tell you that much.
We heard shots fired, audible shots fired approximately 12:40. Would that be about right, that it would be about a 30-minute active scene?
I would say that would be in the ballpark, but again, I don't want to try and provide you information that I can't confirm. So, but it was an extended duration of time that the officers had to engage the individual before we were able to terminate the threat.
Sir, can you tell us any more about the fatalities?
I cannot.
Or whether or not that's...
Whether or not what? Through?
Just about how, I'm sorry, can you tell us a little bit more about the fatalities, about how many times they were shot or where they were shot? Or
no, ma'am, I cannot.
The suspect where on his body he was shot? Or?
I cannot. Again, this is an ongoing investigation, and we're going to provide you with as much information as possible as we can. I will try my best to provide you another update. So hopefully we'll get some additional information. It may just be the same information that I'm providing you now, but we'll try and feed you any information we can. Again, we want to encourage people to not gossip, not to talk about things that they can't confirm. We are going to try and be as transparent as we can to provide you the information that we can. And we encourage you to utilize the information that comes from us and not from other sources.
Can you say anything more about the rumors that you want to dispel, or is there concern there might be other individuals who are involved in this or who were in the house at the time? Or?
No, nothing like that. But some of the rumors that I've heard about is just relationships of people and what they were doing when they happened to be in this area. We're going to try and provide you as much information as we can. But again, be mindful of the fact this is an ongoing investigation and people's lives have been lost.
Chief, you said when the constable showed up and the officer showed up, they came under fire. Was there any kind of warning or anything at all, or is this just the constable walked up, the individual just automatically opened fire, your officers arrived, this individual just started opening fire? There was no warning, no nothing, do you know?
No, sir. As I understand it, again, we're trying to piece everything together. A lot going on, but I don't know exactly what transpired when Constable Bachman arrived on scene. But I do know what happened when our officers arrived on scene. They began to receive fire from the suspect inside. They took cover and defended themselves. And again, we had multiple officers that responded to this area and assisted in neutralizing this threat.
Chief, is the count still 3 dead, 2 wounded? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There's a Constable Bachman, a 65-year-old male civilian is deceased. A 55-year-old female civilian is in surgery. We had an officer that was shot in the calf, and he's stable and currently being treated. And then we had the 2 officers that had non-life-threatening injuries that are currently being treated as well.
Do you know the nature of the officers' injuries?
Excuse me?
2 other officers, do you know the nature of their injuries?
I do not. I know that they were they were not gunshots, but they were in response to the call. They were injured. That's all the time I have for questions. I'll be more than happy to answer any more questions you may have when we return. Again, we're going to try and keep you updated as soon as possible. As soon as we get additional information, we'll provide that to you. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure we have this right. Chief, about the number of deaths.
They said 3, and then they named.
That was Assistant Police Chief Scott McCollum with the latest on that shooting on Fidelity Street. Steve Fullhart is there, and we will check in with him after the break. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, but stay with us. We've got lots more on this breaking news.
Close Cat Joseph Difference. The Brazos Valley's first high-definition news. KBTX News 3.
Welcome back. Well, as you can imagine, it's probably very hard for law enforcement officers out there having to rush to the aid of one of their comrades. And Constable Brian Bachman was taken to the College Station Medical Center. That's where our own News 3's Rashi Batts has been all afternoon. And Rashi, what can you tell us about the outpouring of support?
We're right outside of the ER here at the College Station Medical Center. It's a very somber scene outside. Dozens of residents from all over the community have been trickling in, paying their respects to Brian Bachman and his family. This has really shaken up the law enforcement community here. There have been deputies from the Brazos County Sheriff's Department, as well as constables from different precincts coming in throughout the afternoon. We spoke with the Brazos County judge who stepped in about 15 minutes ago into the ER. He tells me off camera that he's just at a loss for words. Bachman was a constable with Precinct 1 for Brazos County for about a year, and then for 16 years he was a deputy with the Brazos County Sheriff's Office, so he's been in this community for quite some time. He is a father of 2 children and was married for about 20 years. We're told also that 5 other victims that suffered injuries from the incident this afternoon were brought into this ER. 3 suffered gunshot wounds. 2 other victims suffered from other injuries, including chest pains. Brazos County Sheriff Chris Kirk is expected to make a statement in about 15 minutes. We'll be out here and bring you the latest at 5 o'clock, and of course on our web channel at kbtx.com. But for now, we are reporting live outside of the College Station Medical Center. Rashi Batts, News 3.
News 3 weather and the Pinpoint Forecast team brought to you by the Bank and Trust.
Well, as you can imagine, the scene around this afternoon's shooting was scary and tense. Residents in that area called us to report what they were seeing and hearing. One man said he heard at least 100 shots within a 30-minute time frame. Now, again, that's what we were hearing from these callers. Now, outside his window, he says law enforcement officers surrounding the area with weapons drawn. Now, Will Hathaway was one witness who was very close by. I spoke to him about the experience this afternoon. Okay, well, tell us where you were and what time it was roughly when you started hearing the shots.
It was roughly around 12:30, 12:15, around that time frame. I was on my way back to my apartment, and I was turning onto Wellborn from George Bush when I'm on the way up George Bush. I noticed there was a lot of police officers blocking off roads. I thought maybe it was just a traffic stop. And when I turned on the Wellborn, that's when I saw police officers came in front of me and blocked off the road and started directing traffic away back onto George Bush and away from the scene. When I came up there, I saw that the officers had their firearms drawn, and at that point I realized that I turned into the apartment complex right off the corner of George Bush and Wellborn, and once I started to hear gunfire, I got down on the ground of my truck and I started to listen and count the number of shots fired. From what I heard 30 shots fired. They sounded like semi-automatic rounds, rifle. It wasn't, I've heard a lot of people saying reports it was straight shots, but from what I heard it was more of a tap, 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 tap. It's consistent with like semi-automatic fire.
Imagine pretty scary, no matter what type of weapon it was.
Yeah, I'm a storm chaser, and so I have a lot of experience of being calm under high stress, high tense environment, and so I wanted to keep my head level in this situation, just pay attention, because in a scene like this, all details that are known are critical to remember, so I stayed as level-headed as I could. And now that I'm away from the situation, now I'm really starting to feel the realization of what happened, and I feel the jitters and realizing how close I was to the actual event.
What point did it hit you, and did it go from, okay, this is just a traffic situation and I just need to, or maybe some of the roads are blocked off, to this is real and this is a live, active situation where I might be in danger?
Once I saw that, when I came in and saw they were blocking the road off, I was like, okay, that might be gas leak or something. But once I saw the firearms, once they had their guns pulled, that really showed me that this is something serious, and so when I was pulled off, I was in my truck and I was taking pictures, and then when I saw the officer come out with an assault rifle, that's when I really realized this is something serious. And soon after that, from down towards Fidelity, that's when I started hearing shots, and that's when I hit the floor.
And you mentioned the storm chasing, but have you ever experienced or been a part of something like this?
This is a completely new experience. Nothing in anything I've ever seen could prepare someone for this. I mean, when I was watching, I got pictures of ambulances coming and actually leaving, and when they were leaving with a police escort. And I was close enough to the officers that I could hear their radios, and so I heard that 2 officers were down. And at that point, when I saw the ambulance leaving with an escort, that's when I thought that must have been an officer, because usually, and they were leaving fast. I mean, normally if you see an accident they drive slowly away.
Right.
They were booking it out of there as fast as they could. Sense
of urgency, for sure. Well, Will, thanks so much for sharing your experience with us, and we're glad you're safe.
Yeah.
And coming up, we're going to head out to College Station Live for an update with Steve Fullhart. Stay with us.
Welcome to Grand Station.
We are back out live at the College Station Independent School District building, where just a short time ago a press conference wrapped up concerning this shooting, again, which happened around 12:12 this afternoon and has left 3 people dead, including the suspected shooter in this case. We do want to take you through a bit of a timeline to kind of recap where we have been on this day in our coverage. Again, at 12:12, the initial call came in from neighbors in Fidelity Street in that drive area of shots that were fired. Constable Brian Bachman, from what we understand, was serving an eviction notice in the 200 block of that street when he had been shot. According to College Station police, when they arrived on scene, Bachman was down and they began trying to do medical care with him. At the very same time, though, shots fired at the College Station police officers. The scene, from what we've been able to piece together, was active for approximately 30 minutes. Michael Oder and myself arrived nearby, a couple of blocks away, about 30 minutes later, and heard dozens of gunshots ring out over about a 30 to 45 second span. We got notice just a short time later that the shooter was neutralized in this case. We later learned that that person in their mid-30s has died, as did Constable Brian Bachman and a 65-year-old male civilian who was caught in the line of fire. A 55-year-old female civilian was also shot. That person is in surgery at this time. A College Station police officer was shot in the calf. That person supposedly not going to have life-threatening injuries. We also have learned that 2 other College Station police officers were injured, not shot, but certainly a lot of folks in this incident were affected physically. That includes Brian Bachman, a constable since early 2011. He had served in law enforcement in this area since the early 90s, most of that in the Brazos County Sheriff's Department, and he earned the constable seat in an election in late 2010. He is one of the most respected individuals when it comes to law enforcement in this area, a big part of why this continues to be an exceptionally sad day here in the Brazos Valley. And it's a day we'll continue to cover as we get more information. We'll have it on air and online at kbtx.com. That does it for us on First News at 4. We appreciate your time. More local news coming up at 5 and anytime at kbtx.com.
You. Now, in high definition on KBTX, your news leader, this is News 3 at 5.
We begin this evening with continuing breaking news.
In the middle of the street, like they looked at each other. They thought he was going to kill him.
3 people have died in a shooting in College Station, including a Brazos County constable, the alleged shooter, and a male civilian.
Now, that shooting happened just afternoon on Fidelity Street, southeast of George Bush Drive and east of Welborn Road. The constable was reportedly serving an eviction notice when a resident opened fire. News 3's Steve Fullhart is live from the College Station ISD Administration Building, where media has been briefed this afternoon. Steve, we're learning a lot more about this constable killed and those injured injured. Very sad story.
Absolutely, certainly is, John and Meredith, and we should be getting another briefing coming up here in the next few minutes' time. They promised him every hour or so, but let's bring you the latest details, at least as we know them. It was approximately 12:12 this afternoon when shots fired were called in to the College Station Police Department. We understand that Constable Brian Bachman, with Precinct 1, was delivering an eviction notice to a home on Fidelity Drive that is just southwest of the Texas A&M campus when he was shot by a suspect. Authorities responded to that scene immediately. College Station police were then fired upon as they arrived in the 200 block of Fidelity, and including one officer who was shot in the leg. 2 others received injuries as a result of the entire incident. As a result, massive law enforcement turnout in that block of Fidelity. They then spent about half an hour, by our best estimation, on this what they call active scene. It was approximately 12:40 when News 3's Michael Oder and myself arrived a couple of blocks away. We were cordoned off, unable to get anywhere close to the scene, but we heard a plethora of shots being fired in that time, again around 12:40 in the afternoon. Not 5 minutes later, we understood that the shooter had been neutralized, and we later learned, of course, that that shooter died, as did Constable Bachman and a 65-year-old male civilian. Again, we do not know identities of any of the other people besides Constable Bachman. There was also a 55-year-old female civilian that was injured in this, that was shot, taken to a local hospital, and was in surgery as of our last update at 4 p.m. Again, Constable Bachman, we do not understand at this point at least why he was shot. The motive has not yet been determined in this case, but we again do know now that he was delivering an eviction notice to this home on Fidelity Drive. And again, we're expecting another press update here in about, well, within the hour, let's say. They've been a little bit sporadic, but they've been promising him to come fairly regularly, and of course we will have any other information and bring it to you as it becomes available. John and Meredith?
They're not talking a lot about this third person who was shot, 65-year-old man, whether or not he was inside the house, outside the house, just walking in the neighborhood. It could have something to do with next of kin being notified. Have you learned anything more about that from these police briefings?
Not at this point, John. We're still very sketchy as far as, of course, not only the motive, but where exactly these individuals were. Obviously, we had Constable Bachman delivering this notice when he was shot, varying reports of where he was. As far as the civilians are concerned, though, we are not exactly sure what their relations are or their locations were at the time of this shooting.
Steve, we've heard just great things about Constable Bachman today. You gave a little background earlier. Scott McCullum, one of the assistant police chiefs over at CSPD, said that he was a pillar in the law enforcement community, well-known, well-liked. What have you heard?
Exactly that, for sure. He actually ran for constable in late 2010, won the office in Precinct 1, and has been holding that office ever since. But before that, it was back in 1992 that we understand he received a certification. Since 1993 until the time he became constable, he was working for the Brazos County Sheriff's Office. Extremely well-liked and highly decorated, won numerous awards as well, which certainly propelled him in his race, not only for the Republican nomination for constable, but into that office itself. He has not been serving it long, and he also leaves behind a wife of about 20 years and 2 children as well. So certainly so many different aspects of it, but the law enforcement community joining with family and friends in mourning what was a life of an exceptional officer and obviously a pretty good person as well.
You know, our thoughts and prayers go out to the
Definitely.
family in this situation. But you know, you talk about police officers and sheriff's deputies and anybody in law enforcement, and there's always that risk that something like this is going to happen. It's always in the back of your mind. And we have an employee here, somebody in the news department who has a husband who's in law enforcement, and you just, when something like this happens, the first thing you think is, oh, please, let it be my relative, not let it be my husband or brother or sister or whatever. But these things do happen. You hate to see when it happens, when it's something like an eviction.
Definitely.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, Steve, thanks so much for that report. We'll be checking with you a little bit later.
Well, police first got a call of shots fired and an officer down about 12 minutes after noon today on Fidelity Street. That's south of George Bush Drive and east of Welborn Road. And after that, a series of shots could be heard in that neighborhood.
And police immediately set up roadblocks for several blocks around that area. News 3's Clay Falls joins us live just a few blocks from Fidelity Street where people could actually hear that shooting. Clay?
Well, Meredith, it was frightening moments in College Station, and even for our news crew as we arrived on scene this afternoon, and gunfire was still going on. Now, police and firefighters ordered us to evacuate the area, saying it wasn't safe, and within a few moments after pushing back towards George Bush Drive, we heard at least 5 or 6 gunshots in succession. Now, over there.
Go to the chapel.
Issue with Clay right there.
He was about to say that at least 5 ambulances and police rushed to the scene of that shooting because of the reports that there were a number of injuries, possibly even fatalities in that shooting.
I know Clay was there at the scene and he actually heard some of those gunshots, so pretty frightening moments for residents in that area, even from some of our news crews that were at the scene at the very beginning. Here's some of that sound that we got today from some of those witnesses that actually heard the shooting and saw it firsthand.
There's a guy inside a house shooting a shotgun at a police officer. That's about all I know.
Okay, and is your mom held up inside right now?
Well, she's held up in her vehicle on Fidelity Street in front of two houses down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God! I hope they get her out of there and get her.
She's still stuck in a car.
You're on the phone with her right now. Okay.
They're trying to apprehend the perpetrator inside the house.
Yeah, we heard gunshots when we were driving over. We heard shots.
They're shooting.
And obviously, I would be sad for anyone, but I just didn't expect one of my best friends to call me and say that it was about her mom. So, yeah. But just sending lots of prayers their way. I know God's going to take care of it, but
yes.
And as you can imagine, certainly a lot of prayers being said this afternoon after this tragedy. Now, it is still unknown when people will be allowed back into that neighborhood, but we're told the scene is safe now. Roads are still closed, so you are being asked to avoid that area.
Happening just a couple of blocks from Texas A&M University. Now, some of the first pictures we received were from a viewer who happened to be heading home at the time of when that shooting started.
That's right. His name is Will Hathaway, and he sent us these dramatic pictures here from his cell phone. He tells us he was driving to his condo on Holloman West when he saw the police barricade. He actually thought it was a gas leak, so he pulled over into a parking lot, but then that's when he heard the gunfire and started taking pictures.
Now, as you can see, officers were crouched behind their patrol cars with handguns, semi-automatic rifles as this shooting was taking place near Welborn Road. Pretty dramatic pictures, and I'm sure quite scary for those watching all of this unfold.
Definitely. Well, St. Joseph Hospital in Bryan and the College Station Medical Center are treating those injured in the shooting.
5 people were taken to College Station Medical Center, 3 of those with gunshot wounds. 1 person was taken to St. Joseph Hospital in Bryan. News 3's Rashi Vats joins us live from College Station Medical Center with an update on a trauma alert that went into effect there this afternoon. Rashi.
Yeah, Brazos County Sheriff Chris Kirk spoke with us about 15 minutes ago. He was very tearful, not only because he says Brian Bachman was such a great man, he was also a veteran of the sheriff's office for 18 years. He was a father of 2 children, 9 and 14 years old, also had a wife named Donna that he was married to for about 20 years. And what got Sheriff Kirk really choked up was his plans. When he was telling us his plans for Bachman, he says that once Sheriff Kirk, he was deciding to retire, he wanted Bachman to take his place. Just to give you a recap, 5 victims of this incident in this afternoon were taken to the hospital, the ER right behind me. We don't know the condition of all of them, but we do know 3 suffered gunshot wounds. 2 had other injuries, including chest pains. We don't have their conditions yet, but we will keep you posted. That's all for now here, but we will have live updates throughout the show and at 6 o'clock. For now, we're live outside of the College Station Medical Center. Rashi Vats, News 3.
Okay, thanks, Rashi. We're also told that one woman, a female civilian, 55 years of age, was taken to St. Joseph Hospital, and she's undergoing surgery at this time. Now, still ahead on News 3 at 5. When we come back, we will go live again to News 3 Cecil Hart to get the latest from police headquarters on today's shooting in College Station.
News can happen anywhere.
Clearance event, now at Honda. Voted most trusted car brand by KBB.com.
First with news in high definition, KBTX News 3.
An update now on a sad shooting this afternoon in College Station. Brazos County constable was shot and killed, and 2 other people killed, including the suspect in a shooting on Fidelity Street. That's just a few blocks from the Texas A&M campus.
And 4 others were injured in the shooting. News 3, Steve Fullhart joins us live once again from the College Station School District Administration Building, where police have been giving updates on what happened. Steve? Hear him at this time, but we're going to try to get that worked out.
Let's just recap a little bit about what we have learned about this shooting. This was a constable who was responding to actually an eviction that was taking place in this neighborhood that was just southeast of the Texas A&M campus. This was happening just about a little bit after noon, about 12 minutes after noon today, when he was responding, and shots began coming from this house in that area. I understand we have Steve Fullhart.
Yeah, multiple law enforcement agencies responded, and Steve can tell us more about that. Steve, what's the latest?
Yeah, John and Meredith, sorry about that. We do have an update coming in about 15 minutes from now, from what we understand. Basically, what they're having to do is ferry back and forth between the scene and this location that they've chosen to give the press briefings. Assistant Chief Scott McCullough has given the last couple of briefings. He'll be back here around about 5:30-ish or so with that very latest briefing. Again, we are still waiting truly on a motive on this case. Obviously, it was an eviction notice that was being delivered. You can connect any sorts of dots at this point when it comes to that, and then also still awaiting word on notification to us, at least, of those individuals who were killed in this, the shooter and the civilian. But a lot of this is based on telling family members to make sure that they know, so they don't find out through us. Standard procedure, so we are still awaiting word on these individuals, and hopefully this next briefing, if not more, will give us that details. Guys.
Okay, thanks, Steve. We will check in with you in about, you said 15 minutes for that press conference when we'll get the very latest.
That's correct.
Okay, thanks again.
And we will hear more reaction from neighbors in the area of the shooting coming up in just a moment.
KBTX News 3.
And we are continuing to follow our breaking news story from this afternoon. Police still have streets closed near Fidelity and Highland to investigate this afternoon's shooting in College Station. They tell us they are still sorting through evidence and have 4 separate crime scenes.
Yeah, now this is where a constable was shot and killed, 2 other people shot and killed, including the suspect. News 3's Stephanie Hondo spoke to some neighbors who heard the shots. Stephanie, how did they describe what happened?
John and Meredith, neighbors are of course shocked that this happened on their street. Most of the residents who live in the College Station neighborhood are either retired or they're students. Neighbors say they heard the gunfire, but they didn't realize what it was. Some people even said they thought the shots were firecrackers at first. But news of the shooting spread quickly, especially when ambulances and more police arrived at the scene.
Then I jumped up and came out, and that, like I said, that cop was standing out there, and as soon as I got out here, he started shooting, and it was pop, 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 really fast.
They heard gunfire outside for 10 to 15 minutes. Residents were asked to stay in their homes until police secured the area, but many neighbors were outside by the time I got there trying to find out more about what happened. John and Meredith?
All right, thanks for the update, Stephanie. And of course, a code maroon went out for Texas A&M University when this shooting happened, and they were updating that throughout most of the afternoon. We'll continue to bring you the most up-to-date information on this shooting on News 3 at 6 and on our web channel, kbtx.com.
And coming up next in sports, the Texas... A recap of our breaking news story today. A Brazos County constable is among those killed in a shooting this afternoon in College Station. Precinct 1 Constable Brian Bachman was serving an eviction notice on Fidelity Street when the alleged shooter opened fire. The 35-year-old male shooter and a 65-year-old male civilian also died in that shooting. 4 others, including 3 local law enforcement officers, were injured.
2 local church congregations are gathering tonight to remember those who lost their lives in today's shooting.
Christ United Methodist Church on Highway 6 in College College Station and A&M United Methodist Church on University Drive in the Northgate area will both hold vigils at 7 tonight. Brazos County Constable Brian Bachman, who lost his life in today's shooting, has attended both churches.
Now, News 3's Stephen Fullhart has been following this all day long. He joins us live now once again from the College Station Independent School District Administration Building with an update. And Steve, we understand you're waiting for law enforcement officers to come out again and give us an update on what has happened.
That's correct. We're just a few minutes away from that, John. If we understand, less than 5. In fact, Assistant Chief Scott McCullum with the College Station Police Department has arrived back here. He has been transporting himself back between the crime scene itself to get details and here to this location at CSISD in order to brief the media with this information. Again, we don't know exactly what the details are going to be released in this press briefing. The last one, of course, very sizable, in fact, with all the details, including the word that it was an eviction notice being served by Constable Bachman at around noon this afternoon when he was shot and eventually died of those injuries. Again, we do not have confirmed any identities of any of the other individuals, either the shooter or the 65-year-old civilian who were shot and killed in this incident. We are waiting for law enforcement to notify us that those individuals' families have been notified, and then we'll let you know, of course. But we are only going to report on this information after families for sure have been notified of the different incidents in this. Again, we're just a couple minutes away, guys. Okay, actually, want to give you a few more details. Actually, I'll take that back. Here we go. Here's the press conference right now. Again, this is Scott McCullum with College Station PD.
Evening. Just as an update to our previous reports, just wanted to indicate we're still working feverishly to try and get this information, get information in on the investigation, trying to determine exactly what transpired. Again, we're going to try and feed you the information as we can, but currently the only information I can release at this time, in addition to what we talked about previously, is the status of 2 individuals that were undergoing surgery at hospitals. The female that we referred to, the 55-year-old female that we referred to, was in surgery. She is now out of surgery. Her condition is listed as critical, and she is in observation. And the officer that was shot in the calf is out of surgery and is in stable condition. So we again continue to monitor these individuals to make sure that we provide the assistance we can for them. Again, it's a very tough day for law enforcement, and we ask that you keep everyone that's been involved in this situation and this community in your thoughts and prayers, and we hope to bring you some additional information before 10 o'clock as to some more.
Now, in high definition on KBTX, your news leader, this is News 3 at 6.
And I see a gun underneath that car as well.
He thought he was going to kill him.
Had it like whole ready, just it wasn't on his back.
Officers came in front of me and blocked off the road.
We begin with continuing breaking news this evening, and a shooting in College Station that left a Brazos County constable dead, the alleged shooter dead, and another civilian dead. This happened shortly afternoon today on Fidelity Street, southeast of George Bush Drive and east of Welborn Road.
The constable who was killed was serving an eviction notice at a home on Fidelity Street when he was met with gunfire. 2 other officers and a civilian were injured. News 3, Steve Fullhart joins us live from the College Station Independent School District Administration Building, where police have been using that building for news updates this entire afternoon. Steve, what is the latest on this shooting?
Yeah, that latest update came at approximately 5:30. We carried it live here on News 3 and letting us know that the 2 individuals who are alive still but who were shot in this incident have come out of surgery. 55-year-old female who they're just terming as a civilian, not identifying her. She was in surgery and is currently in critical condition at last check. And also a College Station police officer who responded after the initial shooting was shot in the calf. He is in stable condition, having also emerged from surgery. Again, again, let's take you back to the very beginning of all of this. It was at around 12:12 this afternoon that we understand that Constable Brian Bachman from Precinct 1 was serving an eviction notice at a home on Fidelity, and that is when he was shot. The call came into authorities via neighbors on 911 saying that shots had been fired. College Station police responded immediately after that. There were officers nearby in the area. They responded, and then they took fire as well from this suspected shooter, who College Station police are only identifying at this point as a 35-year-old male. No other information has been released by College Station police concerning him at this point. There was approximately a 30-minute active scene, as they are terming it. It was around 12:40 this afternoon that News 3's Michael Oder and myself came up about 2 blocks within the scene where the police had cordoned off the area. And when we parked, we immediately heard a flurry of gunfire from about 2 blocks away where this scene was. We understand that that may have been the end of this situation with the shooter neutralized. And again, the shooter himself, a 35-year-old male, died at the hospital, or at least pronounced dead at hospital, along with Brian Bachman, the constable of just a couple of years, but law enforcement for around 20, and a 65-year-old male civilian as well. Again, the latest update was, though, that 55-year-old female civilian is out of surgery, but still in critical condition, being shot. And then also College Station police officer shot in the calf, just out of surgery as well, in stable condition. That is the latest from here at CSISD. I'm Steve Fullhart, News 3. John and Meredith, back to you.
Hey, Steve, you've had an officer who's been shot and killed in the line of duty. Give us an idea of what you've been covering those news conferences all afternoon, just a reaction from fellow officers on what has happened. Obviously, you would expect, you know, there's going to be a lot of sadness, but man, we saw some of that, I think, in the news conferences you were covering.
No, so that's Yeah, Brian Bachman's been around here for a very long time, graduated from the Teaks Central Texas Police Academy back in 1992, had been with the Brazos County Sheriff's Office from '93 until he assumed the Constable's Office back in 2011. A very well-respected individual. I saw a press release from Congressman Bill Flores, in fact, that he and Constable Bachman had worked at the Feast of Caring just a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago, I should say, at the Brazos Center. Guy who often volunteered his time, also who leaves behind a wife of about 20 years and 2 children as well. Just a supremely respected individual, and somebody that is being mourned today. You've got some brave faces here from law enforcement, but you can tell that it is hurting them immensely that this man has been killed.
Definitely just a sad story. Your thoughts and prayers go out to Constable Bachman's family, and really you're just asking why. But at this time, police are not releasing a motive.
Now, police first got a call of shots fired and an officer down about 12 minutes after noon today on Fidelity Street, south of George Bush Drive and east of Welborn Road. And after that, a series of shots could be heard in that neighborhood.
And police immediately set up roadblocks for several blocks around that area. News 3's Clay Falls joins us live just a few blocks from Fidelity Street, where people could hear that shooting. And Clay, you were one of the first reporters on scene, and you were out on the street before even having to evacuate.
That's right, John and Meredith, and we just were able to get closer in. We're on Fidelity Street right now, and if you can see behind me, it's still a very active crime scene. Right now, over my shoulder, we see a number of state troopers and detectives and police combing through several of the yards, apparently looking for evidence, perhaps ammunition and casings, but they've been here for the last couple of moments now, combing through here, about a dozen or so officers. For me, the most sobering part of the story was hearing all those gunshots as it happened, and now knowing the tragedy that followed. It was also shocking to be on scene talking to residents as gunfire erupted just down the street.
The guy came out of this corner house, and he was being evicted, and the constable came to evict him.
Chaos in College Station as a gunman opens fire on a Brazos County constable and others.
Again, some more shots.
They're shooting right now. News 3 was just blocks away when we heard reports.
And he shot the constable apparently 5 times.
Of an officer down.
From what I've heard, and he was laying down on the street dead, and the guy, the shooter, took all the constable's ammo.
Looking for the house on Fidelity Street, suddenly we heard a gunshot and realized we were just a few houses away when police and firefighters warned us to get further away.
Oh, he had several automatic weapons, apparently.
There's a guy inside a house shooting shooting a shotgun at a police officer. That's about all I know.
Okay, and is your mom held up inside right now?
Well, she's held up in her vehicle on Fidelity Street.
Lauren Naylor was anxious speaking with his mother, who was trapped in her car 2 houses down with a firefight in progress.
Sounds like you're over in Iran, you know.
We heard at least half a dozen rounds while speaking with Rafael Trujillo.
2 officers down and the perpetrator, whoever it is.
Cones are still keeping the public back this afternoon, and we can see SWAT teams still monitoring the perimeter several hours after the shooting happened. Worried residents here are still wondering who the shooter was.
They stormed the house, and I think they've got him.
Thomas McNutt lives a few houses down and heard firsthand what happened from a friend.
They had a shootout across the street. Finally, they shot the shooter. Life is precious. Pretty crazy.
And you can see behind me the investigators are getting closer to us right now, checking out the grass right in front of us. Now the investigation continues as we work to get a closer picture at who the shooter and these victims are. Reporting live in College Station, Clay Falls, News 3.
All right, thanks, Clay.
Now, some of the first pictures we received were from a viewer who happened to be heading home at the time the shooting started. Will Hathaway sent us these pictures from his cell phone. He tells us he was driving to his condo on Holloman West when he saw the police barricade.
He thought it was a gas leak, but said as soon as he pulled into a parking lot, he heard the gunfire and started taking pictures. As you can see, officers were crouched behind their patrol cars with handguns and semi-automatic rifles as the shooting was taking place near Welborn Road. Pretty dramatic pictures, and I'm sure quite scary for those watching this shooting unfold.
Now we are learning more about Brazos County Precinct 1 Constable Brian Bachman, who lost his life during today's shooting. Bachman served as the elected constable of Precinct 1 for 13 years. He joined the Brazos County Sheriff's Office in 1993 as a detention and booking deputy, later becoming a drill instructor at the county's boot camp. He has served in law enforcement for a total of 20 years. From 1998 to 2003, Bachman was a part of the Brazos Valley Narcotics Task Force before returning to the Sheriff's Office in 2005. Bachman is survived by his wife and 2 children.
Brian was the kind of guy that didn't deserve what happened. He did all the right things at all the right times and took care of people.
Earlier today, College Station Assistant Police Chief Scott McCullum said Bachman was a pillar in this community. Well, St. Joseph Hospital in Bryan and the College Station Medical Center are treating those injured in the shooting.
5 people were taken to College Station Medical Center, 3 of those with gunshot wounds. 1 person was taken to St. Joseph Hospital. News 3's Rashi Vance joins us live from College Station Medical Center with an update on victims at that hospital.
Well, around noon, the hospital here went into what they call Code Yellow, which basically means that staff here should be alerted that there might be mass casualties, so they bring in more personnel. And right after the incident, 5 people were brought into this ER, and we were told just moments ago by College Station Medical Center that there's only 1 patient left, and he is a College Station police officer that suffered a gunshot wound, but he is in stable condition. Earlier this afternoon, another patient was Constable Brian Bachman, and he died from his injuries. Dozens of people from the community have been coming to the ER at the College Station Medical Center to visit with Bachman's family. The law enforcement community is really shaken up. Deputies and constables have been visiting as well. Bachman was an 18-year veteran at the Brazos County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Chris Kirk was at the hospital, and he was still very much in shock.
His loss is really devastating for our family, and it's just stunning to know that
a day for the community here. Sheriff Kirk says that he wanted Bachman to take over for him as sheriff once he retired. Reporting live outside of the College Station Medical Center, Rashi Vats, News 3.
Okay, thanks, Rashi.
Emotional day for a lot of people. Still ahead, a look at some church vigils planned for the victims of today's shooting.
Plus, reaction from neighbors who heard the gunfire this afternoon.
All right. We talk internally among ourselves. How can we be better? How can
College Station residents who live near the scene of the shooting at Fidelity in Highland earlier today were asked to stay in their homes while police secured the area.
Code Maroon was also issued for Texas A&M. News 3's Stephanie Ondo talked to neighbors who were home when that shooting happened. Stephanie, how did they describe what happened?
John and Meredith, neighbors said they heard up to 30 shots fired around noon today. They say the gunfire lasted 10 to 15 minutes. Many residents in the College Station neighborhood are either retired or they're students. Neighbors say they still can't believe what happened, even though they were witnesses. Some residents heard the gunfire, but they didn't realize what it was. One person even said he thought the shots were firecrackers at first. But news of the shooting spread quickly once ambulances and more police arrived.
The police started showing up, and when I saw one of them with his gun pulled standing in the alley, I knew it was a serious situation, and it turned out to be pretty doggone serious.
Investigators tell us they're still sorting through evidence and have 4 separate crime scenes. That's why police still have some streets around the street scene closed down. John and Meredith.
All right, thanks for that update, Stephanie. We'll continue to bring you the latest on this shooting tonight on 10 at 10 and online at kbtx.com.
And several local church congregations are gathering tonight to remember those who lost their lives in today's shooting. Christ United Methodist Church on Highway 6 in College Station and A&M United Methodist Church on University Drive in the Northgate area will both hold vigils at 7 tonight. Brazos County Constable Brian Bachman, who lost his life in today's shooting, has attended both churches.
Triple-digit temperatures around.
Now, in high definition from the news leader, this is 10 at 10 on KBTX News 3.
We have a constable down. 762 is clear. We'll be staging on Welborn near Park Place. We need 1 unit to go to Welborn and Fidelity. There's an active shooter. We have 2 officers down that we know of and 1 female that's been shot in her vehicle.
Tense moments for police and bystanders in a College Station neighborhood this afternoon when a man being evicted from his home opened fire.
When the gunfire eventually ended, a Brazos County constable was dead, along with the shooter and another person.
Tonight, several services were held for the victims of the shooting.
And that included a candlelight vigil on the Texas A&M campus tonight. A&M graduate Jason Reynolds used Facebook and phone calls to invite 1,500 people to the plaza in front of the academic building. He said he wanted to do this for the victims of the shooting and their family members. And he knew that because of the Aggie spirit, a lot of people would respond, and they did. We'll have more on that vigil in just a moment. But first, the tense and tragic moments that played out just south of the A&M campus have shocked our community and made headlines across the country.
News 3's Steve Fullhart begins our team coverage tonight with a recap of what happened.
At 12 minutes past 12, College Station police say they received a call of shots fired in the 200 block of Fidelity Street. Officers arrived quickly.
They began taking fire. There was a constable down in the front yard.
Authorities say Brian Bachman, elected to represent Precinct 1, had been delivering an eviction notice to the address when he was gunned down. A College Station officer, Justin Elke, was shot in the calf, and 2 others suffered shrapnel injuries. For 30 minutes, authorities say the scene was active.
Yeah. Hang on, just get some shots of this now.
At around 12:40, when we pulled up to a police block off George Bush Drive, just a few blocks from the scene, we heard a flurry of shots, a pause, and then another flurry.
They were able to engage the gunman. They were able to they ended up shooting the gunman and taking him into custody.
But the alleged shooter, Thomas Caffel, would later die of his injuries, as would what would seem to be an innocent bystander in all of this, 43-year-old Chris Norcliffe. Steve Fullhart, News 3.
Another person in the area, a woman in her early 50s, was also shot in this incident.
She is yet to be identified, but she underwent surgery for her injuries and was last known to be in critical condition. And a little later on in the newscast, who was Thomas Caffel? We'll take a closer look at the alleged shooter, and his family has released a statement. We will bring you that as well.
Several local church congregations gathered this evening to remember those who lost their lives in today's shooting.
And that's in addition to that candlelight vigil we told you about on the Texas A&M campus. News 3's Rashi Vatz is at the vigil in front of the Sol Ra statue on the Texas A&M campus. Rashi, definitely a somber scene.
The candlelight vigil wrapped up just about 30 minutes ago. It's been a very somber atmosphere, not just here on campus, but really throughout the city. We were at a church service earlier this evening in College Station where Constable Brian Bachman's wife and 2 children were in attendance. We also spoke with people that were complete strangers to the Bachmans, but said today they felt like family. An unexpected church service at Christ United Methodist Church had a packed house.
We were just all holding it together.
That included those who didn't even know Constable Brian Bachman.
Hopefully holding it together for the family because the children were there too.
Bachman leaves behind 2 children and a wife. It's a family Brazos County Sheriff Chris Kirk, who attended the service, knows personally.
His wife, one of the first words that she shared with me was that he was doing what he loved to do, and that's so very true.
Law enforcement from all over the community rushed to the ER throughout the afternoon at College Station Medical Center, where Bachman was treated.
We're just devastated.
Sheriff Kirk says he had big plans for Bachman.
I worked with him to get elected Constable Precinct 1 and had hoped that he would take my place when I retired.
Now he has a fallen officer who he says he will always look up to.
He was a Christian man, and so we know where he's going, and we'll join him there someday.
Did speak with other law enforcement at the church service and at the hospital. They said they were just at a loss for words. A very sad day indeed here in Brazos County. Reporting live at Texas A&M University, Rashi Vatz, News 3.
Whew, man, tough to see that
so
stuff.
hard. Thanks, Rashi. Well, Brazos County Constable Brian Bachman dedicated 20 years of his life serving and protecting our community.
He is survived by a wife and 2 children. News 3's Nicole Morton joins us live from Fidelity Street in College Station where that shooting happened. Nicole.
John and Meredith, for those near and far, the loss is certainly a tragedy. But for those even closer to Brian Bachman, the reality he won't be coming home again is one that has yet to settle in.
This is supposed to be the safe place where, it happens somewhere else all the time, not College Station.
We need 1 unit to go to Woburn and Fidelity. There's some active shooter. We have a constable down.
He was just doing his job.
He did all the right things at all the right times and took care of people.
On Monday afternoon, Brazos County Constable Brian Bachman was shot and killed while serving eviction papers to a College Station resident.
762 is clear. We'll be staging on Wilbur.
The news of his death rocked the Twin Cities.
Brian was one of those guys that everybody liked, and he always bent over backwards to help people out.
Todd Weingand has known Bachman for 6 years.
Joined the Little League board and College Station Little League with us.
Bachman dedicated 20 years of his life to serve and protect. He joined the Brazos County Sheriff's Office in 1993, and in 1992, Bachman became a graduate of the Teeks Central Texas Police Academy. Colleagues at Teeks say, quote, Brian and his dedicated spirit will be sorely missed by the entire Police Academy staff. We shall never forget.
Put your game face on and you go to work every day and you don't think about what's going to happen. You don't think about, will you see your wife and kids when you get home that night? Or
Bachman leaves behind a wife and 2 kids. Now, College Station Assistant Police Chief Scott McCollum says Bachman was a pillar to this community. Reporting live in College Station, Nicole Morton, News 3.
Thanks, Nicole. Now, Bachman also served as a Hempstead peace officer before serving in Brazos County.
Now, the law offices of Jeff Paradowski, they've set up a fund for Constable Brian Bachman's family at American Momentum Bank. If you would like to donate to the family's fund, you can visit the bank or call the number on your screen.
Meanwhile, U.S. Congressman Bill Flores said it is heartbreaking to hear the news of this tragic shooting in College Station that took the lives of Brazos County Constable Brian Bachman and an additional victim. Constable Bachman and I were just together at the Feast of Caring last week. He was a brave protector of and servant for our community, and we have all lost a great friend. My thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of this awful shooting. To read more statements about today's shooting, log on to kbtx.com.
Immediately following reports of gunfire this afternoon, police set up roadblocks for several blocks around the area of Fidelity, south of George Bush Drive and east of Welborn Road.
Residents in the area could hear the shooting. News 3's Clay Falls was one of the first reporters there and talked to those close to the scene.
The guy came out of this corner house and he was being evicted, and the constable came to evict him.
Chaos in College Station as a gunman opens fire on a Brazos County constable and others.
Again, some more shots.
They're shooting right now. News 3 was just blocks away when we heard reports.
And he shot the constable apparently 5 times.
Of an officer down.
From what I've heard, and he was laying down on the street dead, and the guy, the shooter, took all the constable's ammo.
Looking for the house on Fidelity Street, suddenly we heard a gunshot and realized we were just a few houses away when police and firefighters warned us to get further away.
Oh, he had several automatic weapons, apparently.
There's a guy inside a house shooting a shotgun at a police officer. That's about all I know.
Okay, and is your mom held up inside right now?
Well, she's held up in her vehicle on Fidelity Street.
Lauren Naylor was anxious speaking with his mother, who was trapped in her car 2 houses down with a firefight in progress.
It's like you're over in Iran, you know.
We heard at least half a dozen rounds while speaking with Ralph Trujillo.
2 officers down and the perpetrator, whoever it is.
Cones are still keeping the public back this afternoon, and we can see SWAT teams still monitoring the perimeter several hours after the shooting happened. Worried residents here are still wondering who the shooter was.
They stormed the house, and I think they've got him.
Thomas McNutt lives a few houses down and heard firsthand what happened from a friend.
They had a shootout across the street. Finally, they shot the shooter.